Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a sports show with some Southern and some Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jared Roser. Today, we've got a couple things that we're going over for you. The Saints are sticking with Derek Carr. They have a new hire in the building as well. LSU's ditching the spring game, and New Orleans has another new hire that we'll get to. There's no limit to what they can do with that one.
Oh, nice.
All right, Jared, how you doing today?
It's Mardi Gras week. I'm doing great.
That's my favorite curse jar of the year so far.
Yeah, we're already mentally somewhere on Orleans or Canal or St. Charles or something for the weekend, and so the fact that so much stuff keeps popping off work-wise is less than ideal. But
listen. This is the time I get most homesick for sure. No one gets it up here. Everyone waits till Tuesday and is like, oh, it's Mardi Gras today. It's like, no, F you guys. All right. You don't get it. All right. Deep Gras has started a week ago. All right.
Tuesday is hit or miss whether or not I even still go out anymore. If that's the day that I kind of head back.
Yeah. No one gets it. No one gets it up here. I digress, but I'm going to probably bring it up again. No one gets it up here.
Well, look, you can look forward to an awful lot of texts from Tyler Batiste and myself in the streets this weekend to kind of stoke that FOMO even more.
I'm going to be honest with you. I hope that can't happen because of the level that you guys are on. I hope that there's no text being had because you can't make text messages. Let's hop into these stories today, though. First off, we got a couple of news with the Saints. Saints have hired Bo Davis, the D-line coach from LSU.
A lot of mixed feelings on the Louisiana Twitter this morning. I'll tell you that much.
Little teeter-totter. What are those feelings? What are you hearing from people out there? What are you seeing on online with that? I have not been able to really. I've been a little detached recently from the social media world. So tell me what's going on with the people. I need you to be my eyes and my ears out there.
Well, first of all, good for you on being detached from social media.
It's
a way healthier place to be than where I'm at.
See, here's the thing. It's not a healthy place. It's just, I'm so busy. I don't have time to scroll.
But I mean, as a credit to Bo and the job that he's done, in Baton Rouge since he came back to the alma mater before last season, and really every stop of the way, he's been such a highly regarded defensive line coach, and at the college level, a recruiter as well, but a guy that does have NFL background, just a few years removed from his time in the league as an assistant coach there. And I think LSU fans have spent decades wondering why the Saints won't draft or sign more LSU players and wondering what the heck's going on. And then an announcement this week that the Saints staff would be involved in LSU's coaching clinic later on this spring. And so there's sort of this excitement of, are we kind of seeing these two, premier franchises in the state working together a little bit now? Can we see some LSU players in some Saints gear at the next level? And instead, the first big move we see by the Saints in regards to LSU
is snake jobs.
is to pull Bo up to the NFL level, which, look, congrats to him. And I think that's a great hire for the Saints. But for LSU, I think Bo is the 10th D-line coach in 10 years for LSU, going back to Coach O before he was elevated to head coach in 2016. And so when we look at some of the shortcomings of the LSU defensive line at times during that stretch, you can look at a lot of different factors, but an instability of who's leading that group, particularly on the recruiting trail, I think has to be considered a factor there. And so the fact that you now lose one of the nation's best defensive line recruiters and player developers in Bo Davis is really frustrating for a team in the Tigers that felt like, okay, we finally got our guy or one of our guys again to kind of shore up and solidify this position group that traditionally is such a strength, but in recent years has been more of an adventure at times.
How long has he been on the staff at LSU?
He's only been back for the year. It's been a revolving door with that position on that staff for a while. But when you look at I guess the reaction of recruits to Bo being back in purple and gold, and the excitement, guys that thought they were going to go play for him at Texas that were then excited to come from Texas and sign in this class to play for Bo Davis in Baton Rouge. The impact that it was having on the current roster and the future roster was pretty evident right off the bat.
Well, I mean, if he follows the same script, he'll be somewhere else next year. So the Saints won't even get him that long.
Well, look, he may stay a while, but the script has been on the LSU side. They can't seem to secure someone and keep him around for long, whether because they leave for a job like Bo or because it just wasn't the right fit and they have to make a move on their end.
Is there anyone, I know this news is kind of fresh, is there anyone on the horizon that would take that? Will it just be probably promoted from within, or are they LSU possibly going to go grab someone?
I genuinely don't know yet. I think it's early enough in the off season that they'll have an opportunity to kind of explore some avenues. And if I was just kind of blindly, 45 minutes or whatever after this news breaking to kind of take a swing at, was it going to be a promotion from within or finding someone from elsewhere? I think it'll be going out and finding someone else.
Yeah.
But it's still super early for sure. Which is I mean, a silver lining to it is they have some time to kind of figure it out. Spring ball is still a couple weeks away. And then they've obviously in recent years also had to deal with instances in which a health dynamic or an injury has forced a defensive line coach switch in August or during the season. And so at least it's February is kind of the best we can say for LSU right now.
All right. And let's go a little more news with the Saints. Indianapolis Combine has happening this week. All the not all the GMs, about 3/4 of the GMs and the coaches are up there and they're giving press conferences. It's a lot of time where you kind of get to see what teams are maybe thinking going into this draft, going into this new season. Mickey Loomis was asked about Derek Carr. He says, I think we've got a guy that we can win with, basically. I think we feel like we've got a guy that we can win with. I'm very pessimistic on Derek Carr. I don't know what the Saints ceiling could be, but Kellen Moore being a little bit of a quarterback's coach, a little bit of that's kind of what you bring him in for. I guess there is optimism, but I don't have a lot of optimism with the Saints right now and with what their situation is cap wise and personnel wise. So what do you make of this? I mean, the Saints really don't have a lot of moves other than go to Spencer Rattler. There's not a lot of things that they can do trade wise, cap wise, anything like that to kind of make moves. They're barely going to be able to pay their draft picks. Is this Mickey Loomis just reiterating this because that's the only thing that the Saints do? So you kind of got to put your best foot forward with the stuff that you have on, or do you think that they are actually in building kind of excited to see what Kellen Moore can do with Derek Carr?
I think there's kind of a combination of both. I guess I think there's certainly I have a level of optimism that with Kellen Moore coming in and working with Derek Carr, that you'll have an opportunity to see a better Derek Carr than what we've seen certainly this year, the last couple of years. And so a nice step forward, particularly with, how close some of those games were at times this year in a bad season and, a few games here or there, how much things could kind of flip, particularly in a division that we talk about consistently, that you don't have to go win 12 or 13 games to win this division right now. And so I think there is reason to have some optimism that a turnaround can be had there, a step forward can be had there with Carr and the offense as a whole. At the same time, I don't know how high that ceiling ultimately ends up being. I don't think either one of us has a ton of optimism that this is suddenly going to be a contender right off the bat. And if you were kind of hamstrung in some ways from a roster standpoint and a financial standpoint and realize that you kind of are sticking with what you've got as opposed to really further mortgaging some things down the road financially, then it doesn't make any sense to throw the dude under the bus and get wishy-washy about it. You might as well just be as confident publicly as you possibly can be and just kind of build him up. And so we'll see exactly how founded some of that optimism proves to be, but that's kind of where it's at.
If the Saints mortgage some more things down the road, I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah.
Like they, I would much rather the Saints right now. And yeah, I agree with what you said. Publicly, you have to be in Derek Carr's corner if that's what you don't want to just go in and be like, well, this year's lost, guys. But I think the only way to get out of this cap hell that the Saints are currently in is to kind of suck for the next 2 years. I I don't see that there's any to get all those kind of contracts off the books. The amount of money that they are paying Taysom Hill to Kamara to Cam Jordan, like all of these pieces. That's why I'm going to stick to my guns that I said last year. I think it needs to get blown up. I think they just need to start trading away all these kind of pieces, and trades aren't really going to help because you got to take some of that money back in or anything. But at least to get some of this stuff off the books, like whatever that means, to get kind of a reset and a fresh start. And maybe you do that, and then in 2 years, Arch Manning comes out, and you get Arch, and that's a really nice reset.
Yeah.
Maybe this year you draft, like we talked about, LSU's Will Campbell, since you're sitting at that, in that mid to late first 10 picks. What are they at, 9? Or are they at
9.
6?
Yeah.
They're at 9,
9.
yeah. And maybe Will Campbell falls there. And even if he can't play tackle, I know you maybe don't want to spend that much on a guard or go that high up on a guard. If that's what he's going to be, which is a whole separate thing.
Yeah. That's I think we'll probably, the closer and closer to the draft we get, we'll end up talking more and more about big Will Campbell and his positioning as a top offensive line prospect in this year's class. But I agree with you in terms of, don't continue to sink more into mediocrity, to sink more expenses and resources into being a mediocre team. And I'll kind of throw you a nice transition line of a rap lyric of 50 Cent, got to make it to heaven going through hell, to just if you have to let the next year or so suck to kind of reset some things, then I mean, go ahead and do it. And I'm not saying tank necessarily. They didn't do such a great job of tanking the back half of this year, honestly, with a couple of those wins. But don't further extend yourself in a way that hurts the future just to try and make some middle of the pack noise.
Yeah, I agree. 2 years left of a 4-year, $150 million on Derek Carr. So ostensibly, you go this year, whatever happens. I think in this 1 to 10 range is probably what they're looking at as well. And then the next year, you can cut ties with Derek Carr. You might get some dead cap space. Roll with Spencer Rattler. Might not be great. Could be awesome. If it's awesome, that's great. If not, then you're right there for 2 years from now, a really good QB class, a really good skills player class that's coming up. Maybe position yourself for that, but we'll see.
Yeah, as long as you're not making some crazy move, and I just spared you another bleep edit right there, but don't go chasing the waterfalls of Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins, or even Sam Darnold, Matt Stafford, who's great, but just don't sink the money into that with this roster. I was
even gonna say, like, if Devontae Adams gets cut from the Jets, well, maybe if he gets cut from the Jets, and then you can get him on a really low salary. But here's the thing. I don't think the Saints can even pay all of their draft picks right now. So there will have to be some restructuring. But yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. It might not be great, but it will be interesting. So we'll see how it goes. Next up, lastly, Master P's coming to UNO. Oh, UNO has hired the No Limit CEO, Master P, as their director of basketball. Yesterday, UNO had a pretty big day yesterday. This came out, and then there's also some news of a gambling ring that 4 UNO players were suspended. So big day for UNO in the news.
Look, UNO hoops, national
What-
news all over the place this week.
What is,
for better or worse, gift and a curse.
What does it mean that Master P is going to be director of basketball operations? What is that going to entail? Does this mean that he's looking more into like NIL stuff, that he's helping him like more of a general manager type role? Like what does this mean?
Yeah, I think he's going to have a range of responsibilities, and Coach Stacey Holloway referenced Coach Miller this week with the hire. And for folks that aren't super familiar with Master P or Percy Miller's background,
Make him say Uno. No, that didn't work. Okay.
the UNO limit privateers, soldiers. For folks, and I think like in our range is kind of a sweet spot where a lot of people probably do remember, but maybe there's some folks a little bit older who happen to stumble across these PODnas episodes that weren't paying a whole lot of attention to Master P the way we were as kids. Maybe there's some younger kids now who just weren't around and don't know their history of both the rap game and the fact that he was a pretty good basketball player and had some professional stints, including some opportunities, some looks with the then Charlotte Hornets and Toronto Raptors rosters. And so he's a guy that, whether it be his own playing career, high school, college, and professionally, or around the AAU circuit, has been involved in basketball for a long time in a lot of different ways and knows the game. He's also a guy that, beyond just being a voice on those rap records, started his record label and has been heavily tied into the business side of things from early on in his career in a way that I think that is even more than necessarily some of what his actual songs did. He's credited as such a pioneer on the industry side and business side of the music career as a rapper coming out when we were kids. And so there's a lot that he brings to the table beyond just obviously a big flashy headline that you mentioned kind of overshadowed the negative headline for UNO basketball that we won't get too into because I don't think we know a ton of details at the moment. But I think there's a lot to be excited about. I mean, even just from the fact that UNO basketball is in a headline of that magnitude, but some of the different avenues he brings to the table in a person who is obviously super passionate about the city and the city's basketball culture and wants to, to create a buzz. And so it'll be interesting to see exactly how that role continues to develop and, how many different avenues he has his kind of hands in, even in just an advisory type role. But he brings a lot to that table, man.
It sounds, you got me kind of jacked up for it. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know how I felt about this before, but the positive spin, I don't know if it's even a spin, the positive notes that you have about this. Listen.
I mean, look, he doesn't get the same love at this point when people look back as like a Wayne, obviously, who's still around doing his thing, as Juvie, who still will randomly show up at like 3:30 a.m. during Zulu Ball every single year, just kind of like wander in to the convention center. P has not seemed as present from a music headline standpoint for us in recent years, but if there's somebody in the New Orleans entertainment space through the years that you want to come in and take a role like this, he's clearly the guy that brings more to the table than just the splashy headline.
Man, this ain't no P. Oh, kids, if you don't know, you need to go get up on your make them say us. All right.
He's got the hookup,
Yeah, Holly, if you hear me. Finally, we're going to talk about Brian Kelly's comments about the. Finally, we're going to talk about Brian Kelly's comments about the LSU Spring Game. Multitude of colleges this year are kind of bucking the trend of what we kind of know as a norm as these spring games and are canceling their spring games. They're not doing it anymore. Brian Kelly spoke on this. He basically said that there was going to change. So, Jared, what do we know about this? And let's go into a little bit more detail, as I know you've got the scoop a little bit on it.
Yeah, I don't think we have a ton of detail of what that spring game is going to look like in April, the spring event. Coach Kelly talked to Wilson Alexander of The Advocate, who had the report on Wednesday night, I believe, later in the day, Wednesday, that Wilson put the news out. essentially they were going to evaluate what they wanted to do with this spring game, and they did want to make sure they had some sort of culmination of their spring work, get some live action in a way that the fans could still come be a part of and get a look at their team for the coming season. It's been interesting to see that kind of swell of notable Power Four programs backing off of the spring game format, and not having anything like that anymore at all. But it seems like LSU, and I know Coach Summerall with Tulane kind of made some comments this week as well of him enjoying spring games. Seems like spring games in some capacity are here to stay for the foreseeable future in Louisiana.
I think that they should take a page out of men's college basketball and do like a Midnight Madness, or like think how cool it would be to do like a spring event at night in Tiger Stadium when the weather's perfect. It's not you're sweating through 8 t-shirts, and that way you can kind of give fans a little semblance of like, oh, you can tailgate to this, like you can treat this like a game, go into Tiger Stadium, have, I don't know, even if it's 7-on-7 drills, or you do something where there's maybe 2 areas of the field where different stuff is going on, kind of very much similar to like a track and field. You're looking at a bunch of different things on the field going on. I think that would be really cool. Could be something that maybe the players like, it's something to differentiate yourself as an LSU program that, hey, we're going to do this, but we're going to make it more an event, a fan event, a player event. I think back to a lot of those times, especially when ACC and men's college basketball was just a powerhouse, and Duke and North Carolina would do these midnight madness or late night with Roy, anything like that, where the players would come out and they would get to put on a show, not go overly hard, not, think about the X's and O's, but literally just kind of entertain and get to show off some of their skills in a fun way. I think would be, I think that's the route that you go. That's my hot take. It's not that hot. It's probably someone's pitched it in a meeting over there.
So Ole Miss actually made sort of a transition to something more along those lines in terms of just some activities and fun stuff, and let it be kind of a hype, enjoyable, entertainment-based day last year. Not surprisingly for Lane Kiffin to be a guy that is the one thinking outside the box and doing some things like that. For me, fine. I mean, I'm whatever. I've never been overly big on the spring game dynamic anyway. It has been a nice opportunity to get out there and see a couple of guys, flash some of their potential of, could this be a year where they take a step forward and give us something else to kind of write about and look at and keep an eye on. But I think sometimes it's been something that a little bit more stock has been put into than necessarily needs to be the case, just because it happens at a slower time of the year from a football standpoint. For me, as long as they don't follow your like somewhat suggestion of making it at midnight, I don't want to be there at midnight. So make it like a normal football game time. At the latest.
No, do like a spring night in Death Valley or something like that. I don't know. And you do it at like 7, like you do it at a normal game time. Yeah.
Just get myself out of there in time to not be in the middle of the night and getting home at.
Listen, man, if you're going to Mardi Gras, you're talking about all this go to bed before midnight stuff. You need to buck up. You're in the thick of it, broski. All right.
But I don't have the benefit in Tiger Stadium that some of the fans might under those circumstances of having the same go-go juice to be up late night as I do Mardi Gras time, where I can have a beer in one hand and a flask in the other all day long as it keep me rolling.
You say you can't do this, but what if you just became the John Daly of journalists, man?
Let's float that by LSU Sports Information and see if they'll roll with it. I mean, we may have a new avenue. I like the
grow out that beard, keep the glasses on, get you some wild pants, be smoking a stogie in the press box. I think that's a great look.
I like how you act like I don't already have crazy ass pants, and B that I can grow a beard better.
Listen, I didn't say better. I just said grow it out. Let's see what happens. Oh man, as in true PODnas fashion, we got off the rails there at the end, but that's what I love about us. Anything else you want to hit up before we get out here today, Jarrett?
No, I know I kept you longer than we had planned on this morning, so it was good to catch up before I go deep graw in the streets these next couple of days, and look forward to again stoking that FOMO for the days to come.
I appreciate it. I'm really glad that I don't have time to scroll right now because it would be a time where I would be death scrolling to all of my friends in Louisiana. Y'all stay safe out there, but have a good time. That's what Mardi Gras is for. I miss y'all. Can't wait. But if you want to catch up with us during Deep Grows, all you got to do is go to Louisiana versus All Y'all on the YouTube page. You can follow it on Twitter, LA versus All Y'all, and you can follow us, PODnas, on Instagram, PODnas_LA. Go check out all the content that we've got up there. It's recruiting stuff, Louisiana sports, some nonsense on our Instagram, all good stuff all the time. Super excited to see y'all. PODnas.